Israeli mortar shells explode near a school run by a UN agency for Palestinian refugees in Gaza, killing over 40 people. The International Red Cross warns of a deteriorating medical care and humanitarian crisis in Gaza. The Chinese naval fleet arrives in the Gulf of Aden off Somalia for the first escort mission against pirates. The natural gas contract dispute between Russia and Ukraine heats up as gas supplies to some EU countries are shut off. Welcome to Worldwide Watch on CCTV International. I'm Liang Hu in Beijing. An Israeli attack on a school in Gaza run by the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees has killed more than 40 people and wounded over 100. Tuesday's attack caused the single highest death toll since the beginning of Israel's offensive on December the 27th. Israel's Prime Minister said he hoped to end the offensive soon, but not before certain conditions are met. David Rathman has more.
Reports say artillery shells from Israeli tanks exploded about 10 meters outside a UN school in the Jabalah refugee camp in northern Gaza on Tuesday evening. Palestinian officials say 46 bodies have been recovered, with 150 others wounded. The Israeli army said its soldiers came under fire from militants hiding in the school and responded defensively. It was the second deadly Israeli attack to strike a UN school since the ground invasion of Gaza began. On Monday evening, 3 Palestinians were killed at another UN school outside Gaza City. In both cases, the schools had been used as shelters for people displaced by the violence. Meanwhile, Israeli forces edged closer to Gaza's major population centers on Tuesday, hitting new targets. They cut the main Gaza highway in several places, dividing the strip into northern, central, and southern sectors. The Israeli military says it has killed 130 militants over the past 2 days, greatly reducing rocket fire into the Jewish. Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Olmert says his country will not compromise on security. He says a ceasefire would be agreed to only if guaranteed an end both to attacks on Israel and to Hamas, rearming and rebuilding. He's also pursuing a diplomatic solution.
About security, I am not compromising. Not here and not anywhere else. And I really hope that no one would be mistaken with any kind of vision as for the level of our determination in every region and every front. We are not eager for any confrontation, but we are not deterred by any threat.
At least 15 rockets were fired on Tuesday by Hamas militants. One landed in the town of Gadara, about 40 kilometers from the Gaza border, lightly wounding a 3-month-old infant. It's the farthest Israeli town to be hit by rocket fire so far. UN officials say more than 540 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza so far, including more than 100 civilians. Meanwhile, 9 Israelis, including 6 soldiers, have died since the offensive began. David Rathman, CCTV.
Some military experts say video of the Israeli assault on Gaza may show the use of a phosphorus shell over Gaza City. If true, use of the weapons in the densely populated area would contravene international laws. Burning phosphorus causes severe and possibly fatal burns when it comes into contact with human skin. Israel has flatly denied using the lethal weapon. An Israeli military spokeswoman insisted that all ammunition being used is in accordance with international law. A senior military analyst at Human Rights Watch says the Israeli Defense Forces have confirmed they are using white phosphorus in Gaza to hide troop movements and legal, non-lethal use of the substance. Israel has a recent history of using phosphorus during conflict, including during the 2006 war in Lebanon. The International Committee of the Red Cross has condemned the lack of access to medical care in the Gaza Strip due to Israeli assaults. Meanwhile, the United Nations has reported that a half-dozen Palestinian medical workers have been killed amid a worsening humanitarian crisis. Zhang Rui has more.
The Red Cross says that with civilian casualties mounting and clean water supplies dwindling, Gaza is now suffering a full-blown humanitarian crisis. The Red Cross has warned that a failure for power supplies could threaten to leave up to 500,000 people without clean water and at risk of disease. The agency says that the medical access is actually worsening as the Israeli military campaign continues.
You know, as we know, that in every situation of armed conflict, the issue of access to medical care is a crucial one. In Gaza, this access has been worsening by the day. Many people in Gaza currently don't get the emergency medical care that they need. Some are even dying because ambulances cannot reach them in time, which is frankly appalling.
UN officials have also voiced concern about an increasingly alarming humanitarian situation in Gaza. The UN says Gaza is running low on clean water, electric power, food, medicine, and other supplies. The head of the United Nations Relief and Works Agency in Gaza says it's increasingly difficult to get humanitarian supplies to residents of the war-ravaged areas.
Doctors tell me that they are short of medicines and other consumable products. Again, this is a reflection of the challenges that are there in getting materials into the Gaza Strip at the moment.
UN officials believe as many as 25% of the people killed in the fighting so far have been civilians, and that Gaza's health system is increasingly precarious, overwhelmed by thousands of injured patients. Zhang CCTV.
And Jordan have agreed on the joint mechanism to deliver aid to the Gaza Strip. That's in response to humanitarian concerns resulting from Israel's intensive assault in the region for nearly 2 weeks. The two sides achieved the consensus during a meeting on Tuesday between Jordan's King Abdullah II and the visiting EU delegation, including EU Commissioner for External Relations Benita Ferrero-Waldner. During the meeting, Jordan underlined the need for immediate action by the international community to stop the Israeli aggression and to protect Palestinians from a humanitarian catastrophe. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas is attending UN Security Council meeting in New York aimed at ending the deadly fighting between Israel and Hamas. In a speech, Abbas said Gaza must be part of a future Palestinian state. He called the ongoing Israeli offensive an unjust siege and that the lift of the siege is non-negotiable. Abbas also said military aggression will not solve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. He called for immediate UN intervention, saying a ceasefire plan set out by Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak and French President Nicolas Sarkozy must be implemented. China has called for a ceasefire in Gaza and has pledged to work with the international community to move the Palestine-Israel issue towards political settlement. Yang Yan has more.
Qin says China is deeply concerned about the escalating conflict and humanitarian crisis in Gaza.
We call on concerned parties to halt military action and armed clashes immediately, and ceasefire to avoid more civilian casualties, and to create conditions for resuming negotiations and resolving the dispute through political channels.
Qin said the Chinese government had done a lot to help resolve the Gaza conflict. Chinese President Hu Jintao and U.S. President George W. Bush, as well as Foreign Minister Yang Jiechi and Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice, discussed the issue during a phone conversation. China has offered $1 million in emergency humanitarian aid to the Palestinian National Authority. Yang Yan, CCTV.
China's Special Envoy on Middle East issues, Sun Bigan, says the Chinese government is gravely concerned about the conflict in Gaza. He also says China has always called for a political solution to the Palestinian-Israeli dispute. The Special Envoy made the remarks in separate meetings with ambassadors and diplomats from Arab countries, Israel, and other relevant parties in Beijing. Coming up next on the